As most of you are aware, one of the best receivers of the past decade, DeAndre Hopkins, is a free agent, free to sign with whomever he pleases, likely going to be a contender of some sort, and he has high salary demands that make the Texans a very unlikely uh, employer. So, but we like dodging it. We like playing around with whether or not the Texans should be interested in DeAndre Hopkins and how much they should pay if they were to take him. I personally don't think that DeAndre Hopkins is the right guy for the Texans right this moment. I think he's best fit on a team that's very, very close. He's best fit for a team like the Texans were in 2020 when they traded DeAndre Hopkins away. Remember when the Texans maybe could have just used some improvements on defense after a huge and massive letdown against the Kansas City Chiefs, but instead Bill O'Brien decided to trade away DeAndre Hopkins and do absolutely nothing to help the defense other than, I guess, lighten their average body weight by saying goodbye to DJ Reader. So it's all in the past, but we can't go back. I'm going to do this. I asked for people to give me counter arguments, give me arguments in favor of going after DeAndre Hopkins, and I want to listen to them. And I'm always open to being swayed, but I'm going to do it while also watching DeAndre Hopkins highlights of him catching passes from 11 different quarterbacks from his time in Houston. Well, I'll be honest with you, I almost forgot that he had even played with Matt Schaub. But we'll start off with a couple highlights, and I've interspersed these tweets in the highlights. So I'm gonna have to watch DeAndre Hopkins propaganda and then answer questions as to why we shouldn't be going after this incredible beast of a human being. Wait. This is Schaub. Let's be sure we get this all right. I don't want to screw you guys out of some really entertaining. Okay, so this is Schaub throwing deep. He was capable of doing that, especially with DeAndre Hopkins.
Deep. It is caught. This is DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins to the 20, to the 15.
Oh, that's Keenum. I forgot. Case Keenum. Okay. I think a lot of the moves have to be done with one goal in mind, and that is developing CJ, getting D-Hop behind a decent offensive line and a stout running game will arguably be one of the best situations for a young QB develop, and that's why I believe they should pay him. Talking about DeAndre Hopkins, I think you have to find a balance, and this is the issue, is that the Texans have a lot of young talent that needs to get paid if you want to retain and build a younger team. DeAndre Hopkins wanting $15+ million, reportedly and understandably, he wants at least Odell Beckham Jr. money. And I don't think that's in the cards for what even the Texans, even though the Texans have more cap space than anybody next year, that's money that I want to use on going after younger free agents, paying guys like Titus Howard, all that stuff. So I agree with on a lot of these arguments for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to agree with, other than the sorry, I got distracted by this for a second. I can't keep the comments open. Boycotting this channel until Seth does a Matt Burke and climbs Kilimanjaro. Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator for the Texans, who once climbed Kilimanjaro. So I'm going to agree factually with a lot of these statements that come up, but disagree philosophically based on where the Texans are right now. So let's see. We saw Case Keenum. I might have had to cut out the Matt Schaub one, but hopefully we'll see another couple Matt Schaubs here.
AFC West division title.
Third
there we
East,
go.
I should say. Yes, here's the 3rd and 19. Arching throw. Oh! Nice catch made by the rookie receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Shades of what he did on the game-winning touchdown.
Okay, you know what happened too was that DeAndre didn't really get going that first year until later in the season, perhaps after. So some of the highlights didn't come. He got his first touchdown. He had a touchdown against Tennessee. Oh, that one got cut out. And then he didn't have a touchdown again until Kansas City. And, that was sparse pickings that year. You guys will recall 2013 was a lean year.
Take it to him. Fitzpatrick all day to throw wide open. DeAndre Hopkins, he will go to the end zone.
And that's the thing right there, too. When teams would make the mistake of not having a safety over the top, that's when the run after the catch would really crush people. And I think DeAndre still has that run after the catch. It just hasn't had the opportunity to show up as much because teams haven't they've been able to play conservatively and just rotate safeties over him and limit all of that. And I think on a different offense, a more explosive offense, he's going to be able to display some of that run after the catch still. He's still got the ability.
Touchdown Texans.
Okay. I like him as a good number one that can take the pressure off these young guys to be perfect and just to keep developing. Plus, it's never bad to add wide receiver depth when you have the cap room. And I guess that's the key. Why I can't even remember why I highlighted this. I did this a few days ago. It's never bad to add wide receiver depth when you have the cap room. The cap room, it's kind of like winning the lottery. It evaporates really quickly if you don't manage it properly. And I'm just not so sure right now that, like, I'm coming off the Brandon Cooks experience too, where, look, Brandon Cooks was all about coming to a rebuild, signing back up for a rebuild, and then things got real, and he realized what he had signed on for, and then he made a stink face for 3 months straight, and he got himself traded. So, yes, it's never bad to add wide receiver depth. I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins would be in the position where even if the Texans outbid all the other teams and that's ultimately what DeAndre wanted, I don't know if he'd end up being a happy and productive citizen if the Texans struggle this year or, just go through, even if they're progressing, but go through these normal growing pains. All right, so more DeAndre Hopkins highlights. This is Houston up 17 over Oakland. I'm guessing week 2 of 2014.
Fitzpatrick out of the gun, looking right the entire way, throws right, and it's caught by Hopkins for a touchdown. Second touchdown of the season for DeAndre Hopkins, and the Texans capitalize off the turnover. They go up.
See, that play is still there for DeAndre now. At age 31, that play is still there. He can still make that. Like, tell me where the blazing speed needed to be for that play to happen.
23-0.
Johnson ran right into his backside. 7-up.
Okay, this you can see the flag at the bottom of the screen right there already. This is painful to watch again. Watch this magnificence.
Giants in front, flags down. Fitzpatrick throwing a deep ball, looking for a free play. Oh, spectacular catch, DeAndre Hopkins. He has got a knack for making sensational plays.
And that was, remember that was DeAndre lined up illegally. I think he was covering up the tight end or not covering up the tight end. I always screw that rule up. But watch him
throwing a deep
do a
ball,
back
looking
arc.
for a free play.
Right there, man.
Oh, spectacular catch, DeAndre Hopkins. He has got a knack for making sensational plays.
The still frame of that was just incredible. But it was called back because DeAndre had lined up illegally. Let's see. Argument for DeAndre Hopkins. An immediate go-to receiver for C.J. Stroud. I believe he still has a lot left. Dude doesn't take big hits and still arguably the best hands in the league. I think 4 dropped passes in the last 3 years or whatever absurdity. DeAndre had that one bad year where I think he was coming off of some kind of a hand injury where he dropped a bunch of passes, and that's pretty much been it. Yes, he still has incredibly good hands. West Coast offense should be very beneficial to his route capability. Negative side would be what it's going to cost. Okay, so obviously I agree on the whole cost thing. This is to be the other, and I'm glad this one came up. I'm not 100% sure that DeAndre Hopkins would be what Bobby Slowick would want if he's trying to really develop a timing and rhythm offense that puts a huge emphasis on precise route running. DeAndre is an awesome route runner, as long as you don't care about precision, because he's going to do, he has a very good understanding and ability to read coverages, to understand and diagnose what the defensive back who's covering him is doing. But he's going to take different angles. He's going to round corners. He's going to do different things. And he doesn't necessarily create a whole lot of separation with his route running, but he bodies people and he knows how to use positioning, and he does an incredible job at it. It's just not necessarily, and I know how this sounds, because this sounds like I'm complaining about a good thing. Again, this is trying to teach CJ Stroud how to operate within this offense, within scheme. You remember DeAndre Hopkins when he was young, how many times he would just stare down Deshaun Watson, how often Deshaun Watson would stare down DeAndre Hopkins because he knows that eventually DeAndre is going to get to the sideline, and whether he's open or not, Deshaun can just throw the ball between DeAndre and the sidelines, and there's a really good chance for a reception. And it's not bad, and Deshaun could have done a better job of it. But until DeAndre was gone, Deshaun never really genuinely developed a good sense of distributing the ball and not really heavily focusing on one guy. He did heavily focus on Brandon Cooks, but not as extremely and as preferentially as he did it with DeAndre Hopkins. More DeAndre Hopkins highlights. This is harder. Watching these highlights this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so this is, let's see, who is that? Oh, Philadelphia. Okay. This would be, is this still 2000? Yeah, this will be 2014 still.
Fitzpatrick on third down. Oh, what a catch. Spectacular catch is made by DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, here we go.
Going deep again. He's got Hopkins, and there he goes. What a throw and what a catch. DeAndre Hopkins has just hauled in a 58-yard touchdown.
Okay, so that first one was a very good example of a quarterback sees the defensive back with his back to back facing the quarterback, and he knows he can just throw the back shoulder, and DeAndre's going to come down with it. I don't know if you even call it a back shoulder. It's kind of like it's DeAndre going up and over anybody who's still in his way and getting the ball. And a guy like either CJ Stroud, but obviously Deshaun Watson, Ryan Fitzpatrick, some of those guys just had a really good sense and understanding and a trust for what DeAndre could do. And I think CJ Stroud would have that. Man, the argument, and one's going to come up here where they basically use my own words against me, but I can't argue against that. He still has that ability. Let's see. Frank Breland says an immediate go-to receiver for CJ Stroud, I believe, still has a lot left. Dude doesn't take. Oh, I already played that one, didn't I? Sorry, Frank. I've already rejected your argument. It wasn't a bad one. Okay. This will be. Oh, Jacksonville. Yeah.
Off the play fake, Hoyer sets up in the pocket.
Hoyer
toward the far side of the field, and Hopkins has it. Is he out of bounds? They'll say, yes, it's a catch. What a play. There is a flag down at the 41 of the Jaguars. On third and goal from inside the 10. Hoyer looking right, slings it right toward the back of the end zone. Caught. Touchdown, Hopkins. He held on.
I don't even remember this one. Let me see this.
Of the Jaguars. On third and goal from inside the 10. Hoyer looking right, slings it right toward the back of the end zone. Caught. Touchdown, Hopkins. He held on.
I'll tell you the thing about that play too is that broke the rules in a lot of ways, which is in the back of the end zone, throw it high, front of the end zone, throw it low. And like DeAndre's ability to adjust to things like that, like it was low in the back of the end zone, but credit to Hoyer, that's kind of where it needed to be, and DeAndre got it. He's just a Hoover.
Training staff.
All right, this is starting to chip away at my resolve. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
2nd and 10. Yates. Hopkins. He went up and caught it for the touchdown. What a play by DeAndre Hopkins on Adam Jones. And the Texans take
that was on Pac-Man.
the lead with TJ Yates at the helm.
Okay, that was TJ Yates at the helm. So we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick. We've seen Matt Schaub. We've seen, so Matt Schaub, Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brian Hoyer, TJ Yates now. That was Cincinnati on Monday Night Football, I believe in 2015. So John Crumpler, who writes for the Texans, I want to say, I apologize, John, but I think for USA Today, I think the best argument would be the receiver of Hopkins' caliber would do wonders for Stroud's transition to the professional game, essentially fast track his development curve by creating some easy passing options and first down. This is the one that I struggle with the most. I think that DeAndre still very much has that ability to do that. I don't think that DeAndre is a diva. I've seen some people go a little bit too far, I think, in criticizing DeAndre's either personality or his locker room persona or whatever it might be. And remember, DeAndre played with a lot of different quarterbacks here, as we've seen, without any complaint at all. I think the issues have always been financial. I think both last year and then perhaps this year as well. The Cardinals are a mess too. Not last year, but with the Texans, and then this past year with the Cardinals as well. But the question is, all right, is that good for the short term or is that good for the long term? Are we looking for something that helps juice the offense right now and gets the ball rolling, helps CJ Stroud spread things out more? And I think I can't argue with what John's saying there. I guess the big question is it at the expense of the development of either Nico Collins or John Mechie or Tank Dell? I think potentially and possibly so, especially if CJ really starts to look at DeAndre Hopkins as a safety blanket. I think DeAndre is what he probably wants, but even if it wasn't exactly what he wanted, if all he wanted was a payday, is that I don't think that this is the situation where it's best to bring in a guy who can stoke the fire quite like that. Plus, he is 31 years old. That's going to be relevant. A couple questions from now, I got to address the age issue, because it's something that goes against something that I've said for a long time, but I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite.
Here he is.
Okay, so this is, the Jets versus, who is that? Okay, let's see. Is that number 6?
Into the nickel on 2nd down and 12. Yates. And what a catch. Right in front of Revis. Hopkins. He had a one-handed touchdown catch.
Was Yates wearing number 6 in one of his? Okay, I don't even remember that. I guess we talked about that.
It was a game winner in Cincinnati on Monday. 2nd down, short 3. Going deep. He's got Hopkins, who has burned Revis. Touchdown. 61 yards.
It's just your classic TJ Yates to DeAndre Hopkins to burn Darrelle Revis. No big deal, right? That's just humdrum. Hey, he only ran a 4.740.
Lost.
Okay. Here we go. My own words being thrown in my face. You always talk about how a great wide receiver one is helpful to the development of a young quarterback. This should help build Stroud's confidence. Seems like an investment that should pay dividends for years to come. Can't argue with there. I can't argue with you there. I think that the other argument that probably doesn't directly combat this, but which is that, hey, DeMeco Ryans has really stressed about how much he wants to build a culture where they practice the way they did in San Francisco, where they're physical, where guys are out there practicing all the time. And, Bobby Slowick needs precision timing, all of that to be able to build that offense. Is DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't practice a whole hell of a lot when he was here in Houston, and that was an issue, a source of dispute, or a source of they butted. Bill O'Brien butted heads with DeAndre Hopkins about that. It is worth pointing out that DeAndre Hopkins was really banged up and playing through a lot of injuries all the time, and he didn't miss games really until these past 2 years. He never missed games. So was he holding himself out, or was he staying out because he was playing through injury, in which case it's a lot easier to excuse that. That's the big question. And is his commitment to practicing what Bobby Slowick and DeMeco Ryans would want? But his ability to actually juice the offense, I think he'd be fine. It would have to be a short-term contract, though. That's the other big thing here is, okay, who are we competing with? Are we going to sit and wait until the other players start offering up big money? Obviously, if the Bills, if the Chiefs, if the Ravens, I don't think the Eagles will, but if the Eagles somehow, some way, if Bill Belichick and DeAndre Hopkins reconciled and New England was in on it, would he take, equal money to come back to the Texans? Of course not. It's the Texans would be something I think it would be like a June, July, August type of signing. More DeAndre. These highlights are getting to me. They're really getting to me. All right. Houston, Buffalo.
Rex Ryan. 1st and 10. Hoyer hit on the throw. What a catch by Hopkins. Still in play. Not only the catch, but the extra yardage at the end of the play. Hoyer on 2nd and 7. Looking right in Hopkins' direction. Again, he comes down and makes the touchdown catch. Brilliant play by...
Watch that again.
Hoyer on 2nd and 7. Looking right in Hopkins' direction. Again, he comes down and makes the touchdown catch. Brilliant play by Hopkins. 19 yards on the strike.
What's the DB? The DB complaining about a push-off?
Looking right in Hopkins' direction. Again, he comes down and makes the touchdown catch.
When it comes to teaching younger wide receivers about some of the nuances of playing football, one thing that DeAndre has always been really good at is understanding how the push-off is called. And he is a master at that. He did 2 things really well. Kind of like Michael Irvin was really good at this too. I don't know how much DeAndre learned from Michael Irvin because I know they're buds, but he knew exactly where the official who would make the call was. And then he also understood that they don't mind arm bars. They don't mind you using your arms for positioning. It's whenever they see extension. Same thing goes for like late hits on the quarterback. As long as you don't, well, it used to be, as long as you don't extend your hands or something, they're cool with you just hitting them. Again, pre-New Age era. But with a lot of this stuff, offensive linemen, if they can hold properly without showing a lot of tugging or anything, they're going to get away with it. So those are the nuances of the game that DeAndre has always been really good at.
Brilliant play by Hopkins. 19 yards on the strike from Hoyer. Brandon Whedon back onto the field. This is
Brandon Whedon back onto the field.
1st and 10 from just inside the 35. Whedon has time. He's going to take a shot. Looking for Hopkins down the field, and he's got him. Hopkins with a brilliant over-the-shoulder catch, beating Cody Sensabaugh in coverage.
Oh, what are you going to do, Sensabaugh? Argument, because I love him so much. I can't argue with that. If you love D-Hop, you love D-Hop. I think there are a lot of fans that don't love D-Hop, either because they've just moved on from him emotionally or because DeAndre, I feel like he took it out on us a little too much after he was traded. Sean Pendergast and I talked about this morning, that there were, like, DeAndre would come after the Texans on social media long after Bill O'Brien was gone. And I think I as a fan kind of felt like, hey man, come on. Like, we didn't like the trade either. We complained about it. We're on your side, man. Don't lash out at everybody. I told Sean, I think it's an offshoot of the same way that wide receivers will keep complaining even after the flag is thrown for interference. Like, they'll get up, they felt they were interfered with, and they'll complain to the ref, and there will be like 3 flags at the wide receiver's feet, and he'll still keep complaining, because ultimately at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of the wide receiver isn't upset about the interference and whether it was called or not. It was the fact that it was like a 40-yard reception that's taken away from them. Yes, the team gets down to where you are, but like, you did get robbed of an interception, so you're still angry. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins stayed mad about the interception or the pass interference that was that trade for like 3 years afterwards. So not everybody loves him, and a lot of people are nervous about exactly what it would mean if he came back to the locker room. I think he's being unfairly characterized as like a bad locker room guy. I don't think that at all. And this is the important thing. He's not a charismatic, disruptive shit talker. Like, he's not gonna destroy the coaches or like engage in a lot of basically trying to turn people against the coaches. The stories you would hear about Ed Reed when he came in as a veteran and things didn't turn out well, that's something that, could possibly have infected lots of people. He was not happy and he was vocal about it. I think with DeAndre, I don't want to call him a loner, but he's not as much going to be the charismatic guy that turns everybody against the coach or questions the direction of the team. I think he might get upset and they might work something out to where he leaves, but that would be if he was on more than a one-year deal. And I don't think that's what it would be with the Texans. I think it would be a one-year deal. Okay, so Tennessee, Houston. Is this a...
As he also moves over 100 catches on the year. 2nd and 10. Another chance. Hopkins climbing the ladder for the Houston touchdown.
Watch this again.
As he also moves over 100 catches on the year. 2nd and 10. Another chance. Hopkins climbing the ladder for the Houston touchdown. They go right back to that same spot and connect for a 15-yard scoring.
First down, Osweiler looks one way.
There we go. Osweiler.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Ooh,
Holy cow.
my God.
What a catch.
All right, so that was from Brock Osweiler versus the Lions. So if we go back to, boy, God, that's a long time ago, isn't it? That would have been yeah, well, let's see. He didn't have a touch. Okay. Week 8 of 2016. Okay.
Hopkins turned around and caught it. The ball was thrown when his back was to Osweiler.
Just be cleansed of the bad juju that started once he was traded. The football gods will show us grace again. I don't know if that's a serious argument. If it is a serious argument, I'll take it more seriously than I would normally take any juju argument. The only thing is that, like, most of the bad juju has already been cleansed out of the building without going too heavily into Bill O'Brien, Jack Easterby, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like that ship has sailed. If anything, we've brought good juju back in with DeMeco Ryans. And I just don't know. Like, DeMeco Ryans was the right football hire, whether or not DeMeco had played for the Texans. It just makes it extra nice that he did play for the Texans. So I don't think that wasn't a move or a hire based on sentimentality. It was one based on, man, luckily DeMeco had that affection for the Texans in the city of Houston, so it made it possible. But I feel like we've already used up our juju card for the year. We can't make any other moves based on sentimentality, righting wrongs of the past, or anything like that. We're going to call this a win and keep at it with DeMeco.
Short drop, quick throw, and there's Hopkins, the juggling act, brought down by Perriman, reels it in, brought down with a nice catch at the 43, picks up 19.
Here comes the blitz by the Titans, picked up by the Texans, and here is Hopkins into the open fields, inside the 15 and dragged down inside the 5.
That, man, that's on a first read. Osweiler just,
here comes the blitz by
gun it.
Titans, picked up by the Texans, and here is Hopkins into the open fields, inside the 15 and dragged down inside the 5.
Fifth time.
Bro, how? Bro's been in the league and produces. Stroud is very accurate, and the Texans need a WR1. All they have is slot wide receivers. It does feel like that. The guys that you're excited about are slot wide receivers, I think, because you're intrigued by John Mechie. You're excited about Tank Dell. Nico Collins. One thing to know about Nico Collins. Nico Collins was the victim of an absurdly high number of errant and poorly thrown balls by Davis Mills last year. The percentage of, the actual catch rate of Nico Collins without him actually dropping any balls is ridiculous. He didn't have that many opportunities to actually catch well thrown balls. So I think there are a lot of people outside of Houston, objective observers, that are really interested in watching Nico Collins this year. But yeah, I'll agree that you don't necessarily have a lot of non-slot wide receivers, but you also like, it's not like DeAndre Hopkins is a burner on the outside or anything. It's not like bringing in DeAndre Hopkins is going to be like the Stephon Diggs. Like, in a lot of ways, DeAndre Hopkins in many ways was the best slot receiver the Texans had for a long time.
In 7 possessions.
Let's see. This looks like another Osweiler joint.
Brock Osweiler throwing a deep ball, and it is caught! DeAndre Hopkins with the grab inside the 5-yard line with David Amerson in coverage.
If I showed you all the highlights of Brock Osweiler to DeAndre Hopkins, you would think it was a pretty good idea to sign Brock Osweiler too. So that's a very good testament to how good DeAndre Hopkins is, and B, the danger of me watching this highlight reel while trying to maintain an anti-DeAndre Hopkins stance.
Second down and 8. Hopkins push on McCain.
Productive push off.
Catch is made, and a beauty it was. At the 18-yard line, he picks up 21.
Good at extending and reaching for off-target throws. Look at that.
Watch 2 of his star players go off so early in this game.
3-man rush. Deep downfield, and it is a touchdown. Hopkins, in a ton of traffic, beached Mitchell.
All right. In my honest opinion, every successful team has a specific possession receiver who isn't in every down, but when he is in, the whole league knows the ball is going to him, and yet he still gets it for 3 to 15 yards, and every QB needs this. Who better than Hopkins? I think the question there, too, who better than Hopkins, I think part of that is the argument against Hopkins. It's that this team, hopefully over the next 3 years, is going to find their Deebo Samuel, not a first rounder. Brandon Ayuk is a first rounder. Deebo Samuel, not a first rounder. George Kittle, 5th round pick. I'm thinking of San Francisco guys, because that's obviously where Bobby Slowick just came from. But with the Houston Texans, who is their DeAndre Hopkins, really? So if the Texans end up with a mid-first round pick next year, that's when hopefully they potentially find either the DeAndre Hopkins or another defensive end, or whoever it might be. Like, this team is still in the infancy of all of that. As far as that possession receiver that the whole league knows the ball is going to, I feel like that's a little bit of an exaggeration in terms of what actually works in the NFL. One of the things that this system does is, ideally people are kind of in a pinch and in a bind and not knowing who the ball is going to, regardless who you have out on the field. But San Francisco last year, if you watch it with Bobby Slowick as the pass game coordinator, they did have a lot of run after catch opportunities, a lot of them. And that's where I think DeAndre still has a lot of ability that he hasn't had the opportunity to use in that offense as the focal point. And I think that's where, again, he unlikely wouldn't want to choose to come to the Texans unless they overpaid him, because he needs to be somewhere where he plays alongside other wide receivers that are going to give him those run after the catch opportunities. If he matches up with Stephon Diggs, it could get really, really ugly for defenses, because they're not going to be able to just focus on limiting DeAndre Hopkins in the run after the catch.
With a second down and 10, Deshaun Watson going deep to the side. What a catch! Hopkins grabs it. Sherman defending and put him to the 22-yard line.
This was right before, was this the game that Deshaun got an owie?
Of Seattle.
Cornerback like Richard Sherman. He's in great position. And
second down, 7.
Here we go. Just watch this.
Hopkins looking for a block. Giacomini gives it to him.
Giacomini.
He also got one from Martin, and there he goes. It's a foot race, and he is in for the lead.
Depends on his mindset, if he has matured, if he buys into Ryan's vision, if he will be a positive influence in the locker room, and so on. Yeah, as far as whether he's matured or not, I don't know if that's I don't think it's fair to necessarily say that he was immature. I think he had issues with Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby, obviously, but I think that I think he would see eye to eye with DeMeco Ryans. I guess the question would be just, is he going to buy in 100% and practice to the same degree and level that DeMeco Ryans wants him to?
and get a touchdown. Savage stepping up again, going for it all. End zone. Touchdown, Hopkins.
Haven't had the same starting quarterback for all 16 games since Matt Schaub did it in 2012. Savage sets up a deep ball. A rainbow is caught by Hopkins against Kayvon Webster.
There's a lot of these. Another thing that DeAndre does a good job of, and you wonder, like, okay, if DeAndre doesn't have ridiculous speed, how is he beating these guys? How are these guys not looking for the ball? Again, when you talk about the subtle nuances, he had a really good understanding and feel of how not to alert that he was going back for the ball. So, like, right there, he first turns for it.
It's up a deep ball. A rainbow is caught by Hopkins against Kayvon Webster for the Texans.
Those guys also know that if the ball's placed on the outside, like, they got to be able to do everything they can to get out there, because DeAndre can still reel it in. Puts them in like a two-way bind as they're running full speed downfield.
On offense, from the Cardinals 28 on first down. Savage looking for Hopkins. He makes the catch for a Texans touchdown.
I like this Tom Savage guy. Okay, so that's the end of the tweets. Just a couple quotes as we finish up the highlights. This one was from Albert Breer. He asked one veteran team executive what's still there, talking about DeAndre Hopkins, and he answered via text, "Not much. You can't run anymore." Another answer was pretty different. This is from a second unnamed executive. "He's still a good player, good route runner, big physical target that can play a ball in the air. He is still a threat." Third played on both sides of it, and we'll play that in a minute. But I think that first quote, I feel like that's a guy who was never a fan of DeAndre Hopkins to begin with, possibly because that's never been DeAndre's deal. DeAndre has never been a guy that's all about getting huge separation or running really fast downfield. He's a body positioning, catch radius type guy. The second quote, good route runner, big physical target that can play a ball in the air, and he's still a threat. Yeah, and I've seen that from him this year. I think it's just a matter of him staying healthy and then not getting suspended for PEDs.
The season.
It's another big question that we haven't really answered.
A first down at the 29 of San Francisco. And they play fake to Lamar Miller going into the end zone to Hopkins. Hopkins has it. Touchdown. His career to be part of a great team. Here's Hilton blitzing off the slot again. Passer Hopkins. Oh my goodness. Did he catch that? Did he catch that? That's the touchdown catch of the year if that's good. That's unbelievable. What he just did. This is unbelievable.
All right. And again, with the look, he gives a stiff arm on the push off, which allows the push off.
He tries it one-handed here and just tips it up.
Ooh.
And then goes with the other.
Still great hands. He's not going to separate much. Not much of a deep threat, but very strong and makes contested catches as well as anyone in the NFL. Does not love to practice. I can't imagine that'll get any better. And when things don't go well, you're always going to be leery. All right, what kind of drama are we going to get from this guy? When things are great, he's great. When things go south, his true colors show a little bit. But he's always shows up on game day. He's going to have to go to a team that knows what they're getting. You cannot expect a perfect attendance type of worker. And I think that's why I think if he goes to a team that's already got an established culture, it makes a lot of sense. If you're a team that's trying to establish a culture, it's not necessarily the veteran guy that you can point to and say, hey, do it just like DeAndre does it. Because DeAndre, he does it his own way and it works for him. But he's kind of special, and it's hard to establish a culture when some of the best players on the team are like that. And I think sometimes the culture arguments get stale because so few coaches actually do a good job establishing the culture. I'm optimistic at this point that DeMeco actually knows what he's doing when it comes to that. So that's it is one of the big reservations I have. And I know a lot of people say like, oh, this is stupid talking about practice and this, that, the other. And you could pull out the Allen Iverson quote. It matters. It matters if you actually know what you're doing. It matters. It's just a lot of coaches don't know what they're doing.
Comes the razzle-dazzle again.
Fake toss. Watson throws, caught. This is Hopkins into Dallas territory. On his feet, look at that, a whirling dervish to the 27-yard line.
You see JJ. Let's see who else was there. No, we missed it. Go back to this Cowboys. Oh, Jadeveon Clowney.
A whirling dervish to the 27-yard line.
Let's see.
Unbelievable.
Watson empty backfield, throwing end zone. Hopkins has got it for the touchdown. What a catch. He's got unbelievable hands, and he shows them off right there.
I'd say about 2/3 of these highlights, like, it doesn't matter if he's lost a step or not. Which I don't know if he has a step to lose. He's just always, he's never been fast.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Watson's looking that way, taking a shot for Hopkins. What a catch! Hopkins with one hand.
What we know is, and this is Albert Breer, by the end in Houston, Hopkins was banged up enough to where he barely practiced at all during the season, and that was 3.5 years ago. And before he started missing time due to injury, well, over his first 8 NFL seasons, he played in 126 of 128 games, plus 6 playoff games. And remember, I think at least one of those games that he missed was at the very end of a season, and it was a meaningless game. He was banged up, said that he would have played if he had to. So, and I want to say both of them were. So he was incredibly durable. And now he's missed 15 of 34 games, 6 due to a PED suspension the past 2 years. The question is that the kind of trend that reverses when you're 31 years old?
Field position to start this one. Watson has the time. Deep over the middle of the field. He got Hopkins in the end zone. Touchdown, Texans.
What a play. And here he is right here. DeAndre Hopkins, he's just splitting right down the middle, going right over the top of the safety, plays a little hand fighting, but check out how he tracks the ball.
Off the play fake. Towards the end zone for Hopkins.
Oh, baby.
What a grab.
Going in and out a lot, huh? Let's see. It's let's see, showing how. Yeah, that's not, I don't think that's quite the deal. They're usually pretty cool about it as long as it's NFL stuff, except that, yeah, we'll see. I wondered why you know what, I should have yeah, it's YouTube hating. Stream suspended for policy violations. Yeah, I wonder, okay, I might be screwed here, huh? I wondered why the listeners dropped so quickly. I'll probably, you know what, I'm going to cut this off before we before I don't care. I'll do whatever I want. I'll do whatever I want, damn it. They're usually really cool as long as you cut it up into like shorter segments. Last year they were like, last year I was kind of shocked at how much they let us show, but they might be cracking down a little bit on it. So I don't think I got banned, and I don't know how many of you are still here, but that concludes our watching highlights portion. Maybe watching 40 minutes of highlights was a little bit much for YouTube. I don't know. Let's see. YouTube slid Seth. Pat had to get a deal done. This is what's funny. Pat McAfee had to get a deal done to show footage, so the NFL came down on poor Seth. They're actually like they've been pretty cool because they still get their royalties. I was actually surprised that Pat McAfee had to pay what he did to be able to show the footage, but it's only within, I think it's within a certain limit. In that I don't know. Maybe I've gotten enough. It's not like I'm Pat McAfee sized, obviously, but maybe I've gotten enough that now it's an issue. All right, guys. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to watch the DeMeco Ryans stuff later. We'll see if We'll see. We'll see if I've got any notifications. You know what? Stick around here. I'm gonna check my email right now. I'm gonna see if YouTube gave me a notification or anything. Here we go. Your live stream. Oh, due to a copyright match, your stream was interrupted. Here, I'll show you guys. Son of a bitch. Damn it. All right, here we go. Let me present this to you. I thought I'd crack the system, man. Let's see. Due to a copyright match, your stream was interrupted. Streams are interrupted when copyright content is detected. After copyright material is no longer being streamed, streams are automatically re-enabled. You know what happens? Okay, it's because I was streaming. Okay, I get it. If I do a video and I've got NFL highlights in there, then they check it, they send the royalties to the NFL, and then that's it. But if I'm live streaming, I can't use the royalties, or can't use the copyright protected stuff. So, okay, now I know. I'm sorry, NFL. I apologize, YouTube. I apologize to ICANN and to copyright attorneys. I apologize to people that work at NFL Network that I may have screwed out of several cents of the royalties. And I'll never do it again. I'll only do this with pre-recorded videos.